I made 51,334 cold calls before turning 23. And that taught me a ton, from like human psychology to what scripts and openers work the best, and just a more generic just sales advice. And in this video, I basically have distilled everything that I learned down to just 19 things, and I want to share with you guys what those things are. So if you don't know who I am yet, my name is Danny. I run a small business in the Nashville area that I bought, and I basically help businesses with all their refreshment services on site. And so in that process, we have to do a lot of cold calling to reach business owners, HR managers, facility managers directly. And so in addition to that, while I was in college, I paid part of my college tuition through cold calling efforts. And so I want to share with you guys everything that I've learned step by step. So I have my iPad here and we're ready to go. The first thing is cold calling is a market research machine, not just a sales channel. When you start cold calling, odds are you're not going to know what you're doing. And if you've already experienced cold calling for a while, if you already know your offer, good for you. You already know what the market wants, cool. If you're starting something completely new, you haven't figured out what your offer is, what the market really wants. So if you have a thesis in your brain, right, you've gone to Claude, ChatGPT, whatever, and you're like, cool, I'm going to pitch plumbers website design. Whatever your offer is, you don't really know if the market specifically wants that, unless of course it's already been proven by somebody else. But if you're trying to figure out what the market really wants, it's much better than just talking to Claude or ChatGPT than just go out there and actually do 1,000 cold calls. Plumbers, electricians, business owners, they're going to tell you what they actually want, right? If you go out there to reach out med spa owners, if you're running an agency or whatever business you do, and you reach out to them and you're like, hey, we want to bring you guys leads. And they're like, oh, we've heard that a million times. Odds are that offer isn't going to be great. And so in addition to cold calling being a sales channel, treat it in the beginning like a market research machine to figure out your actual offer. Once you have that, once you've gone to 100, 500, 1,000 cold calls, and you figure it out, like, oh, business owners actually don't want a website. They want their Google reviews managed, or they don't want that. They actually want to pay per lead. But most of the people that actually wanted to pay for leads, they much rather pay for a qualified phone call. Your offer starts to evolve over time until you actually find something that the market truly, truly, truly wants, right? Or at least you figure out to position something a little bit boring to something a little bit different, right? Let's say you do janitorial cleaning and all business owners, they're like, yeah, we don't really need that, or like, we're not really interested. But you're able to pivot something into an offer that's a little bit more no-brainer by doing 1,000 calls, right? And so the best thing that I did when I was doing those calls is I took 1,000 calls essentially, and I was basically putting transcripts over and over and over into a Claude project. And so once it wasn't 1,000, probably closer to like 20 to 30 of those. But once I saw which calls were the longest and all their objections, all the questions they had, what they were truly interested in, then I could use that to build a video sales letter. Then I could use that to write email copy. And then I could use that to tweak the script, tweak the offer. And we had so much more data to actually go to the market with, essentially. So that's the first thing. Number two, your offer matters less than your ability to reach the right person. So reaching the right person in cold calling is probably, I would say, 60, 70%. We've tried a bunch of different softwares from like ZoomInfo, Data Axle, to like the real estate ones when I was doing wholesaling back in college, like Bash Leads, PropStream, etc. And the data is king. Like reaching the right person is key. And so we started struggling. We started getting lower response rates because, our dialers were going to spam. So we had to register it to the free call directory, right? And we started, in addition to only cold calling the actual numbers on Google, which wasn't giving us a great response rate, we actually started pulling direct phone numbers from platforms like Apollo, Sales Handy, etc. And now we had 3 different phone numbers to call for one person instead. We had their business phone number, which you're going to see on Google, which 99% of people call, which is not going to be great. But then we also have their direct work line, possibly their extension or the direct phone number. And then we have their mobile phone number. So with those 3, we were hitting them in all different, basically every single different place. And it was improving our contact rate with the actual right person 2 to 4x. So once you have the list, it's like, how many people can you actually contact? And so if I have a level 10 offer, but I'm getting stopped by, what's the name of the person? The office lady, right? What's her name? Yeah, you guys know what I'm saying. Basically, the person at the front desk, right, who stops every single call. And if the gatekeeper is stopping me every single time and I want to get to the HR manager or I want to get to the business owner or whatever, it's basically no use. No matter how good of a cold caller you are, you're going to have to change your strategy. Either change your list or become much better actually handling the gatekeeper and trying to get through to the right decision maker. Number 3, not every single offer should be cold called. Certain offers or certain business models, business types make better for cold calling. So if you're trying to cold call and it's not working, and it hasn't been proven to work yet in cold calling, I recommend, check it out. Don't do anything cold calling if you're not really sure if it hasn't even worked cold calling. Typically, any services that are either low risk, easy to understand, where you have a high lifetime value, or you're reaching like a business owner, or it's typically B2B, or sometimes even like real estate where you're selling a home for somebody or where you're selling a business for somebody, those offers are going to be very, very good to do in cold calling because you need to reach the one person, and that person could be worth $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 plus for you. So cold calling isn't going to be working the best for you if you're direct to consumer, e-commerce, or any of these lower ticket things. It just doesn't really make financial sense to do it, right? So cold calling offers that I've heard that work well, janitorial, any of these other simple, boring B2B business offers, anything that's non-emergency based. So you don't want things that are emergency based. You want things that are recurring, boring. Things for agency people like website design, Google My Business Profile. That usually works best if it's low ticket. Wholesaling, where you're either a real estate agent or you're actually a wholesaler yourself. Any of those things work in cold calling, either because you're transferring the risk away from them, right? Where you only make money if they make money, or B, it's just a very boring service. You're not going to scam somebody. Like you're not going to sell an online course through cold calling people, but you will be able to sell a business on cleaning their building once a week through cold calling because it's really simple, easy offer to understand, and they can see you actually done the job. So number 4, most people quit cold calling before they have enough data to know whether it works. I remember when I first started, I was probably like 18, 19. I was actually trying to do cold calling for an agency, and I was trying to do basically leads for contractors, and I don't even know what I was doing at all. And I think I did like 20 cold calls, and I was like, bro, this is scoped. Dude, I didn't know how much volume is actually needed to actually make things work. Like, I can probably pull up a picture, but last month we did 5,500 cold calls, and for some that's probably even very little, right? So however many cold calls you think you're doing, whether it's 50 a day, 100 a day, you have to do like 200 a day for like 30 days to actually see something's possible, at least at the very, very minimum. And from there, odds are you're going to be able to tweak your offer, tweak your positioning, figure out a new list to pull, figure out a new target demographic, and a lot of things can change. But you have to do lots and lots of volume. We've at least spoken to 100 to 200 decision makers. So most people that are starting, they usually quit very, very early. And what I've realized to get around that is if you just got like $500 or $600, dude, just hire a VA to do it for you from onlinejobs.ph. Pay them, figure out the script. You can listen to their call recordings every day, and then you can change the script on their behalf. Change the script, adjust it, and then keep on pitching. Okay, number 5. The real goal isn't to get clients, it's to find your optimal selling system. Okay, so when I was first getting started, this is typically more to, this applies to anybody. When you're first cold calling, your goal isn't really to, how many people can I close? How many clients can I get? How many sales or leads can I acquire? Yes, that's very, very important, but don't get too fixated on it. Your number one goal is actually to find your optimal selling system. That concept of an OSS comes from a book called Ready, Fire, Aim. And basically what it says is, hey, if you're below $1 million a year in revenue, your only goal is to find one channel, one offer, and one product. Just those 3. One channel, one offer, one product. Cold calling could be that channel for you, right? It might be a blend of channels. Maybe it's just outbound in general. Maybe it's cold calling layered in with LinkedIn, layered in with email, right? If cold outbound is the channel for you, maybe it's not cold outbound, maybe it's like affiliates, maybe it's paid ads. but you're really trying to figure out, can cold calling or cold outbound as a channel work for me at scale, right? If you're designing software, if you're designing, you're doing real estate sales, whatever it is, that's what you're really trying to figure out. If it becomes a system where you're like, hey, actually, we cold called 10,000 people, we spoke to this many people, and then, we closed this many, then we're like, oh, what if we called 100,000, right? Then you start to see if it scales. That's all you're trying to figure out. Can this become a proven and repeatable machine that can actually scale the business? Because once you have that one channel, the one client avatar, and the one product, you can just basically push that. And so that's kind of what we're trying to figure out as well. Is cold calling going to work for us long term to be a successful channel? And so we're doing a lot of different tests, testing the offer, testing the target demographic, the lists, and playing with different variables to figure out if we can find an optimal selling system. Number 6, every objection is free market research. I won't stay too long on this one, but yes, every single time they tell you no, you want to ask why. You want to understand on the call what could actually work, what would they would actually be interested in. Dude, I guarantee you, if you spoke to 1,000 gym owners, you could figure out something to sell them. Like, any business can be started off like this. As long as you can speak to somebody and say, hey, I can either save you time or money, every single reason they say no, there's a reason behind it. And after you've had 100 calls, just put all the transcripts into Claude and you could spin up a business from that either way, or at least handle all the objections that they said no to and actually probably get to actual sales calls. Number 7, you want to prove the system yourself before hiring VAs. So we definitely made this mistake before ourselves. We were kind of lazy at first and we were like, let's just put some VAs in here. We had never proven the offer and the optimal selling system out ourselves. So once we put virtual assistants in it, they didn't really have much success. They didn't really have a good offer. They didn't have a good script. And, we had to let them go. We made some mistakes in that we had never proven out the channel and proven out the offer ourselves. So I think it would have helped us a lot to set up the right expectations from the beginning for ourselves and say, hey, we can't expect them to succeed. They're not even Americans. They're from the Philippines. They have accents. Like, dude, we haven't even succeeded doing cold calling ourselves yet. Why would we expect somebody else to? And so that would have helped a lot of our expectations. Once we kind of thought about that, we're like, yeah, it makes sense why they didn't succeed. We didn't even know if it was going to work, right? But you can at least use it to accelerate data. That's what you want to get. All you want to do is get data back and see kind of what's working. And then you start shutting things down. Same thing as Facebook ads. You're on Facebook ads. You have a bunch of different creatives. You run a bunch of different stuff, and the ones that work, you keep, and the other ones, you cut off. That's how it was for us with cold calling. Unfortunately, I don't really recommend that too much just because you're actually playing with, people's full-time jobs. So that was just our mistake. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we learned. Number 8, once you prove it, delegation becomes much easier. Yeah, kind of goes to number 7. It's just prove out the system works and just keep on delegating. Number 9, your data is an asset. Don't waste it. Every single time I got objections, like I mentioned, I just put it into a big Claude project and just said, improve the script. What can we do better? What can we pitch? How can we change the offer? And it just got better and better and better. Number 10, one prospect to generate multiple touch points. For B2B or for list outbound, there's many different channels. Like, oftentimes it's like, oh, cold calling doesn't work. Well, maybe you're not reaching the right person. Maybe you're not hitting the right list. Right? There's a lot of factors. Maybe you're calling at the wrong time. Maybe it's the wrong target demographic. So there's a lot of different things, right? But can you maybe do SMS as well? Does SMS work like 10 times better? Maybe we could systemize a way to do direct SMS. I know there's voicemail drops aren't really allowed to anymore, but maybe email, right? Can we layer different forms? Oh, like LinkedIn as well. And so can we layer different forms of cold outreach to use or squeeze the same list 3 to 4x more, right? So once you have the actual contact, call their work email, call their personal phone number, leave a voicemail, text them, email them, do everything, do all the 9 yards because you already have the contact. Might as well hit them 6 different times through 6 different types of channels over the next month or so to see if they actually want your offer. Which kind of goes into 11, which is kind of recycle the lists. We thought like, hey, this is not going to work because we're going to burn through a list super quick. And once we realized is that typically lists are called every 3 to 6 months. It's pretty standard in B2B. It's like once you go through the list, after 60, 90 days, you pull the whole list back again. And as long as they're not on the do not call list, you basically call them all again. And that kind of helped us measure out, okay, if we have 2 cold callers and they're going through this many calls per day, this many calls per month, how many leads will we need for them on a cycle, right, of like 3 months? And you can kind of project out how much you need. And it's really a lot less than you might think. Number 12, money is usually in the not now prospects. Or in other words, a tiny percentage of your market is going to be in market. Like if you were to put a pyramid, right, and 30% of the people are down here, they're not even aware of your solution. They don't even know you exist, right? Then the other 30%, I think it is, at the middle tier is people that know your solution, they're just not sold on you or something along those lines. And it's like only the top 1 to 3% are people that are actually needing your current solution at the current point in time, right? When I was doing door-to-door for a company called Active Pest Control, it's like those would be called laydowns. People that, oh yeah, I was actually looking for pest control yesterday, you know? Like they actually were looking for your service, or they're very, very interested because they have the current problem. And you just happen to reach them at the right time. For us, we made the mistake by thinking cold calling didn't work because we were like, oh yeah, it's only like a shot in the dark, bro. It's like 1 out of 100. But the truth is, 10 out of 100 or 15 out of 100 are actually potentially interested. You're just waiting for their contract to expire. Or they're potentially interested, maybe just the price is too high, right? There's like another 3 to 4x from that initial like 2 to 3% that's actually interested in your current solution, but maybe not at the right time. Maybe they don't have the right finances currently, they're still in contract, whatever it is. But they're unhappy with what they have, and if you were to reach them 3 months later, they'd be interested. So for cold calling, since you're reaching outbound and you're not doing like cold ads or paid ads, the money is in the follow-up. Right? It's in building a huge pipeline of contacts that you have that you're like, oh, they're probably ready at this time or at this time or at that time. And that's where you really make probably a lot of your money. Like, we made a mistake in our business by thinking we had to pivot, but we realized that in B2B, like our average first touch to close is about 4 months. We're trying to shorten it, but it's just a reality. People are moving offices, they're doing construction, and then we're part of that process. And it takes time for us to actually get in there, set everything up, and for them to sign contracts, get it to all the owners, all the touch points, and for us to actually get in there. Our mistake was thinking it was like, you know, starting an agency or wholesaling where it's like, you can make a deal in like 3 weeks. So you have to understand what your sales cycle in your industry looks like and kind of prepare accordingly is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to skip 13. It's kind of what I said already. Number 14, specialize in the sales process. When you first hire virtual assistants, they're not going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. You're going to suck. And the goal is to learn as much as you can and get better over time. I have learned so much about business, outreach, what the right scripts to use after doing 51,000 calls. And for anyone that's thinking like, how do you do 51,000 calls? Well, you have a dialer that's doing multiple lines at one time. Out of those 55,000 calls, I probably spoke to like real people about 10% of the time, 8 to 10%. So about 5,000 people is how much I really spoke to, right? And so in that process, it's trying to master the art of reaching out to people directly and setting in appointments. You have to enjoy the game and just realize that, hey, you're probably going to suck. You're going to learn a lot, but it's going to make you a better person overall. And you can't take rejections personally. Sometimes people hate their lives. It is what it is. But you move forward and you keep on pushing. Number 15, kind of like what I mentioned earlier, which is volume creates consistency. In the beginning, it's going to seem very sporadic. It's going to be like, oh, this doesn't really work, whatever. I would say 99% of people that start cold calling, if it's you yourself, you are probably going to fail because you're not giving enough time. And cold calling can be mentally very, very hard, especially if you have never been in any sort of outbound sales before. If you've been in door-to-door, dude, cold calling is like the easiest thing on planet Earth. You're like, dude, I can sit in my room, I can just cold call. But because you can sit in your room, it's like me, I have like my bed right there on the floor. It's really easy for someone to slack off. So there's pros and cons to it. But once you do a lot of volume, like I would say minimum speak to about 100 people. If your contact rate is 10%, that means you want to be doing about 1,000 calls. If you can do 100 calls a day, then it should take you about 10 working days to get to those 1,000 calls. All right, I wouldn't recommend using your phone. I would recommend using a dialer. You probably pay like $200 a month for it, but it's just going to save you so much time and just the long term, because you can speak to those people much quicker. And instead of it taking you a month to get your first clients or a month to figure out if your offer works, you can do it like in 5 days, right? I'd spend the money personally. I mentioned this a little bit briefly. Sorry, I'm kind of going all over the place, but don't expect new reps to perform like you immediately. Your reps, whoever you hire, are going to suck, especially if you've never proven out the offer. If you prove out the offer and you hire them in, it takes some time to ramp. So when we had our reps, we had them all in a Slack channel. We were doing a morning sales call not a morning sales call, but like call reviews, where we'd all play the call and see what they could do better, what they thought they did well, and we'd all give feedback on the call. Then what I would do after that is I would essentially say, I would put them on the phones. They'd start at 9 o'clock. Then I would speak to them individually through and through to see how they were doing. And then after that, around 4:30, we'd have another meeting or they would send like end of the day reports, which I got from Cole Gordon, what he recommended you do. And there they would basically put like how they felt in the day, how many dials they did, how many contacts they got. And we could also see it in the dialer, but it's basically like, hey, you're clocking out for the day, essentially, is what we did for them. And that was pretty beneficial. And so just understanding how to manage a sales team, if you've never managed one before, or you've never managed a team of like outbound VAs, it might be a little bit weird or complicated. So it's also a skill set. Like odds are you probably suck. Like I sucked I'm not probably still great at managing a sales team. Like I was figuring things out, right? And so just because you're a good salesperson, just because you're a good closer, doesn't mean you're gonna be a good sales manager. And that's what I had to learn as well, unfortunately, the hard way. So last but not least, I'm not even sure if I'm gonna go through 18 because I kind of went over it already. But number 19 is that no one cares. And I want to close the video off with this because when we were cold calling, at first we were like, dude, we just cold called them like a month ago. We're going to cold call them again? And I told my guy, I was like, dude, they don't even know who we are. It might be a different person at the front desk. No one even remembers when you cold call after like a month or two. Like you're doing your job and they're doing their job by not letting you get through to the decision maker. It's like, unless you've spoken to the decision maker and they tell you no, it's no for right now. 3 months later, it could be a yes. You really don't know. And the only way you're going to figure out is by calling them again. And so just remember that like no one's thinking about it. The anticipation is a lot worse when you first start cold calling. You're like so scared. Like I remember looking at the phone and I'm like, this is so freaking scary. And, just not wanting to do it at all. But eventually you kind of are like, whatever, you start. And once you start, it gets super easy after that. Also, on a side note, something else I want to say is cold calling in just sales in general has probably taught me so much. It teaches you about kind of who people are. You see how like nasty some people can be and how nice some other people can be as well. It gives you a lot of confidence because you're like, dude, if I can call and I can make money rain from the sky, like I'm a rainmaker, like I can make it happen. I know I won't go broke. Like you have a skill set. You could just get a list of 1,000 prospects and sell them anything, basically. It's also teaches you a lot about like dating because dating is very similar. It's like a funnel as well. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but it teaches you a lot about life in general, that like nothing is easy. You have to go out there and get it, go out there and ask people for it, transact something to get some sort of value, and they give you money for that value that you give them, and that's how you make money. That's how you start a business. And your whole entire goal when you do cold calling is to figure out what that exact thing is for them. And cold calling, the only thing that differs is what business you're in, right? Because what makes somebody $1,000 could also make somebody worth $1 billion. I could take a list of 1,000, what's the word? Let's think of a normal business. Think of a plumber, it's plumbers, right? I could think of a list of 1,000 plumbers across the United States and pitch them to clean their headquarters at their local franchise office, right? Or at their location. I could also pitch them, if it's mom and pops, I could pitch them $97 to $200 on like SEO, website design, stuff like that. And I could build an agency. If I'm a business broker, I could be pitching them to sell their business for them. I could be pitching a ton of different things. I could also be a private equity fund and be pitching to see if they're looking to sell their business. And I could maybe buy their business for $3, $5, $10 million bucks. and roll that up and to sell that for $1 billion in like, 20 years. I'm being hypothetical here, but what I'm trying to say is cold calling is the fundamental skill. Of course, if you're running an investment firm, you're doing different things, you're not gonna be the one that's cold calling, but the skill is the same. You are doing outbound as a channel for sales to get in contact with the prospect. Once you talk to them on the phone, or once you speak to them and get in contact with them, whether it's through direct mail, whatever the channel is, what happens later determines really how much money you're gonna make. I've seen people that do wholesaling that, do 20, 30K a month, that call lists of rental properties. And I've seen people that own properties that are worth 10 million bucks. And then I've seen friends that work in investment firms that they're doing the exact same things. They're doing direct mail, they're reaching out to owners directly, they're cold calling them, or they're going to brokers and the brokers are doing that, but they're buying a building for $30 million. But this thing is the exact same thing. So once you master cold calling, or at least you understand how it works, I think really the world is for the taking, to be honest. And so I've learned a lot. I'm not sure if we will continue cold calling. I'm not sure if it's a channel for us because we've been having a lot more success doing paid ads. But that being said, I did want to make this whole encompassing video just going over a lot more briefly, just overall things I've learned in general. And if you guys want me to do a more detailed video on, either hiring outbound, how we did that, specifically more tactical, I can, but I just want to do a more broad video here. So thanks for watching and we'll see you guys in the next one.